20th century is marked by significant population growth, globalization, and the widespread use of sophisticated technological systems. While all of this has brought about an improvement in the quality of life, they have also given rise to new and more complex problems that do not have simple, straightforward solutions. By the mid-20th century, a group of thinkers, including engineers, designers, architects, educators, computer scientists, political scientists, began to imagine a new way of approaching these complex problems. The approach they came up with is design thinking. The Design Thinking for Educator Toolkit describes design thinking as the belief that we can make a difference and have an intentional process in order to get to new relevant solutions that create positive impact. Design thinking gives you faith in your creative abilities and a process for transforming difficult challenges into opportunities for design. Design thinking is characterized by a few core principles that sets it apart from other approaches to problem solving. For me, the two key principles are the use of abductive reasoning and the focus on empathy. Abductive reasoning is when you have to make decisions before you have all the information. This is distinct from deductive reasoning, which is when you deduce a solution or conclusion based on verifiable truth, or inductive reasoning, which is when you make broad generalizations based on observable data. While it may seem counterintuitive to solve problems with incomplete information, abductive reasoning is much closer to how problem solving works in the real world. We often have to make decisions before we have the time and resources to gather all information we need, and it is impossible to have all possible information at hand before we start figuring out a solution, especially if the problem is urgent. Empathy is the capacity to see things from another's point of view, and design thinking's focus on empathy ensures that its solutions are centered around all the stakeholders who might be affected by the process. This usually starts with collaboration with community and working with other experts. There are usually 4 to 5 steps to design thinking. For example, the Design Thinking for Educator Toolkit follows these 5 steps: discovery, interpretation, ideation, experimentation, and evolution. However, the 5 steps used by Stanford University's design school are empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. As you can see, they follow the same basic principles, so I will use Stanford University's guide here. Empathize starts off with asking questions. Who are the stakeholders and what's at stake for them? What are their concerns? Starting with these questions ensure that empathy is at the center of your design thinking. Define involves synthesizing the different points of view that you've gathered and using them to frame or reframe the problem. Was the problem the same as before you started asking questions? Does the way you define the problem involve all the perspectives you have gathered? The next stage is ideation. This is the time to brainstorm ideas and play with possibilities. The next 2 stages, prototyping and testing, go hand in hand. After you've come up with some possible solutions, you design prototypes that can be tested in the real world. The key during the testing phase is to be open to failure and to learn from them. Design thinking is recommended as a way to approach modern-day problems. It is also seen as a way of teaching and learning. The best example of this is the Quest to Learn schools in New York City, in which students learn through game design. Overall, design thinking is a deeply human approach that relies on your ability to be intuitive, to interpret what you observe, and to develop ideas that are emotionally meaningful to those you are designing for. All skills you are well versed in as an educator. I hope you found design thinking interesting and encourage you to explore it further. Here are some resources that you might find helpful. Thank you.